Alrighty, my name is Jake Runnels, and today we are with a fusion of Soulbra and Stonewall Jackson. The Southern Spirit reborn. Today we have South Bra, who I'm super excited to talk about or talk with today, because I recently came across his content and immediately I'm like, oh my god, this is epic because it is a fusion of two ideas, two concepts that I feel like are not really often like affiliated with one another, two different niches, and you're kind of like the fusion or the nexus point between these two different things, which I think is just awesome. So you have like talking about things like Julius Evola and like von Sternberg and this stuff, and then with like the very clear like Southern drawl, like Southern accent and everything like that. So you can tell
Yeah.
that's like an influence and everything like that as well. So really enjoyed your content when I first came across it. Maybe just a bit quick introduction on yourself and what made you interested in making this kind of content.
Yeah, dude. Came across Soul Bra. Soul Bra's been, I mean, my name is South Bra,
Yeah,
Soul Bra, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with South Bra. I found him in like 21, 22, and that's kind of like changed my life per se, like eating healthy, going to gym, working out, just being like upping like my vitality through like eating as best as I can and like learning as much as I can. Um, and then just like was watching his stuff for like years and years until like 24 is when I started my account, and it was just like pictures and videos of my food of what I was eating.
yeah,
And then for some reason took like a long break. I took like a year break just doing, which shot myself in the knee. And then I went to like slide like the carousel posts on Instagram, and then was doing like just random like my thoughts and stuff, and then from there it went to like history, and then I did started doing like historical carousels and then some with my thoughts. And then one day I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna make like like recordings of myself. And then I still didn't feel confident talking to a camera because I was never the type. I don't even talk myself alone, let alone talking to a camera. I was
yeah,
like, no, that concept is completely far off for me. And then one day was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna hit record and start talking.
yeah,
And then like I did like the Roman Empire. That was very easy, very basic to start. And then did that for a couple months, maybe like 2 or 3 months, not long.
yeah,
And then one day I was just like, I'm gonna take the blur off and
yeah,
then see what happens. And then 10,000 views. I was like, dang, I should have been doing this from the start.
yeah, yeah,
And then just started rolling from there. That was April. That was like 2 months ago is
yeah.
when I took the blur off, and then just been in motion ever since. The Great Dane and Jonas Kilker have been like the other two that have
Yeah.
like really inspired me to start. I model a lot of my video. My videos look exactly like Jonas Kilker's,
Yeah,
and Mike
yeah,
Ma has said, all great work, all great art is a copy of another. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
What
just
are
it's fun.
Go ahead, keep going.
It's fun. It's almost like a game. It's like Pokemon Go. It's like catching the coolest poke. Every time somebody cool follows me, I'm like, I caught that Pokemon. I just
Yeah,
gotta follow from Jonas Kilker.
yeah,
I gotta follow from this guy. I gotta follow
yeah,
from this guy, and then it's just been a snowball from there.
yeah. What would you say like if you have to sort of define your position, your beliefs, and what you think? What are I guess uh, the the ways of thinking? What are the things that you hate? Like, what are the things you don't agree with that is currently popular or going around? Like, how would you, I guess, position yourself against the other common trends that are commonly out there? Like things that you frequently disagree with.
The destruction of morality, the destruction of traditions. Um, I hate AI. I'll use AI I'll like, if I see something that I want to talk about, I'll chat GPT or Claude and be like, give me some quick facts about this, and then the website links that I can go to, and then research.
Hmm.
Um, AI is a big one. Um, People that like clickbaity, like cringe influencers a little bit. I don't really like that. Not
Hmm.
too I'm not too big on the algorithm. The algorithm is like, if you feed into the algorithm, you're losing a little bit of yourself. Why not just, if you're gonna do something on social media, why not make it about yourself? Why not just
Yeah.
have some heart and soul in it? You don't
Yeah.
have to have this perfect and then explain that hook at the end of the video like most people say, and then some people are like, "Oh, you got to post 20 videos a day." It's like, "No, dude. Instagram is like value, TikTok is volume,
Yeah.
a little bit." I could see it because TikTok, dude,
Yeah.
those people over there, they don't have an
Retards.
attention span at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, retards.
Yeah. Why do we not see as many? Because I personally, what I liked about yours is the like the combination of, I think, that that southern element. Why don't we see more of that? We don't see a lot of like southern influencers. I feel like it's just not very common, or if it is, it's usually along the same vein as like, yeah, almost like a version of like Kirk conservatism or something like this, or like the uber Zionist Christian conservatism. Is
Yeah,
it usually very rarely falls into the this sort of like based New Age category
yeah.
that that we're seeing more of nowadays.
Like right wing intellectualism. There's not a lot of that in the South. I don't know. Maybe there are there are a few Southern influencers, but it's mostly like go like drinking and like being like redneck almost, like
Yeah,
drinking, sports stuff like that. There's not, like you said, there's not a lot of people that are like intellectual Southern um like commentators on the
yeah,
internet. There is one that I like. I forget his name right now. He's pretty cool. He's more of an intellectual, but we need to bring that back. We need to bring back Southern aristocracy, Southern intellectualism.
yeah.
Um, the view that Southerners can't think. I don't like that. I want to force people to be like, Southerners can think too.
Yeah, it seems intentional. It seems like, an extension of like the whole, psyop of Reconstruction era. It seems left over from that. It's the whole
Yeah,
because there was like an intellectual tradition, for the longest period of time. But I feel like it's almost
yeah,
since like the after we're still living in the aftermath of the Civil War, I think, in a lot of ways, and that's something
yeah,
you feel when you still can feel that when you go through certain like southern towns or southern cities, like growing up in like very very rural Florida. Like even there, of course, it's far from any of like the battles or anything like that, but you still feel like a bit of like the resonant, like the remaining leftovers of that. And yeah, I don't know. My theory is it's always been kind of like in the best interest of the powers that be to push this sort of like goyification of the Southern man, the Mountain Dew
yeah,
and the drinking beers and Bud Light and just watching
yeah,
football, like that is
yeah,
in the best interest of some powers that be, in my opinion.
yeah. The bread and circuses aspect. Now I can get it. I can get down. I'm an Alabama fan.
Yeah,
I don't think saying I'm from Alabama is too doxing. Alabama's a pretty big state.
yeah, of
I can
course.
understand the bread and circuses a little bit. I limit it to, it's 12 days a year Alabama plays, and those 12 days I will be having a beer, I will be drinking, I will be
Yeah.
taking in the
Well, look,
bread and circuses, but
it is a tradition. I can't deny that. But
yeah,
you get the overall like like the getting lost in it sort of thing where yeah individuals where
Yeah,
their whole they're almost consumed by it. Meanwhile, like their country is being completely
yeah.
robbed from them left and right, deteriorated, and they're looking at who's number 10 in the polls
It's
or
gonna be the
something
next
like
quarterback.
yeah who's
Yeah,
gonna be the next quarterback. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, I like, yeah, tradition is a big part of it. I can see the pushback with bread and circuses. Like the people that sit alone. I have a friend who just whenever every time Alabama plays, he sits in his room, all the lights are off, and just stares at the game. But what we do, it's less about the football and it's more
yeah,
about like the brotherhood. We call them game days. Every single game day, we have at least 30 people at my house. We're all just like hanging out. And it's
yeah.
like a congregation. It's like a fellowship
Oh yeah,
more
yeah,
than more it at the point the football doesn't really matter. It's
yeah,
more about the fellowship and hanging out with friends and family.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I like that more because it's more sustaining. It's less about, who's going to be the next NFL pro, who's going to do good in the combine, who's going to be the next quarterback, linebacker, who's this. It's more
yeah,
about hanging out.
yeah.
But yeah, the I could definitely feel the remnants of the Civil War. Almost everywhere I go, like the past, it's a part of us.
Yeah.
We live through it. Like it's the blood memories almost.
Yeah, 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 and again, not necessarily hating on the goy ball. I mean, as some would call it, it has a very important tradition. It has a very, I mean, growing up, it was the same thing. We were all in the South, SEC. We were all Gator fans. Our neighbors across the street, they were from Georgia, and so every single year we would have a huge gathering for the Florida Georgia game, and it was like a big rivalry thing. And you're right, it was more about the fact that it was just like these different communities all sort of like coming together and sort of like yeah breaking bread over the game, and the game sort of becomes secondary.
Yeah,
I wish there was maybe more of that, or if it was like done in maybe a different way, or maybe like a more like again like a higher brow like classier way, because
yeah,
ultimately like when you're watching it, it's like it's so commodified, and also like after a certain point, yeah, personally, I just couldn't care couldn't care less. Like with the
yeah,
like the direct like demographic change in this country and all these things. I'm like, man, all right, I can't, I almost can't enjoy it. But it is a luxury to be able to have those sort of like traditional and communal things, and
yeah,
it's one of like sort of the last remnants of that I think still currently exists.
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. What is your I
There's a
guess
lot. There's a lot more to worry about than the next if we win or not. But go on.
yeah, no, I think 100%. In Alabama, what when you say like you can still sort of see the like the remnants of the Civil War, what do you see exactly? Like do you still see like I guess a resentment? Do people have a overall like still like a resentment for Yankeedom or like people from
Or those
different
dirty
parts of the
Yanks.
yeah, yeah.
No, it's more of like a pride thing. It's more of like not an underdog aspect. It's more like more prideful. It's like because it was ultimately like about northern oppression, and there's a lot of like the old timers, like old heads that like one down the road from me still flies the Confederate flag, has a cannon out in his front yard.
Yeah.
Every every year he goes to the Civil War reenactments. It's like being proud. There's still sort of pride that goes along with the Civil War. And a lot of people will be like, well, that's the only thing that the South has ever been through. It's like, well, it's not the only thing, but it's like one of the major things that the South has been through. People still will hate on that. It's from a place of ignorance, I think.
Yeah.
Um, People, it's being lost. Like
Yeah.
especially my my parents' generation and my generation, the millennials, and then now like the younger kids, I'm sure are just gonna completely forget about it. It's just being that sort of that era of history for us is just gonna get lost within the generations.
Who were the good guys and why, in your opinion?
The Confederates, because I'm biased. No, I'm just kidding. Um, the Confederates, obviously, because I'm a Southerner. We're both Southerners, so
Yeah.
obviously it's gonna be the Confederates. And it's not even the slavery aspect. Whenever I hear people say, "Oh, the Civil War was only about slavery," it's like no, like the Yankees, the Union was like coming down, robbing our stuff, taking our stuff, um, just killing us for no reason. They would just kill people for no reason, rob our stuff, take away people's livelihoods, take away people's farms. Um, we were like the underdogs. It was like yeah,
Yeah. Well, the I mean the slavery aspect, I guess, is something that always comes back to growing up. That was the common trope. Is like I would again in the South, like you go to school and they teach you in school like yeah it was about slavery, and then usually
yeah,
you go home and then like talk to family and they're like well no it's actually about more than than just that. But what do you think about? I mean, because ultimately, I guess that is sort of the moral conundrum, right? Is that the Union believed obviously that the South, what they were doing was this absurdly evil
yeah,
institution, slavery, like keeping people in bondage or whatever. Personally, I feel like in many ways those communities are maybe you can make any argument worse off now than they were during those times back then.
yeah,
But it is sort of I think the case always like that is the difficult position that I think the South is put in because
yeah,
ultimately I think everyone accepts not really myself so much but everyone accepts this thought, this idea that like that was an evil institution and it had to go. Even people
yeah,
in the South will usually generally always agree with that, but still, the Civil War happened, and who did it end up affecting the most? It ended up affecting the South the most. So
yeah,
it's kind of like it's a very particular moral conundrum because if fundamentally you believe that it was a very evil institution, then it's like okay, well then how does it stop if you don't if there wasn't some sort of like war to fight over it in some sense. In my opinion, I feel like it probably again like nowadays I think we have slavery just in a different form. It doesn't go by the name
yeah.
slavery, but it very much exists, and again I think in many ways it's worse. But I mean, what would you sort of I guess like say to that or expand on that, like sort of the moral conundrum that ultimately the Southerners were in?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like we get blamed. Like the whole slavery thing gets pinned just on us. It's like people forget the North had slaves. Abraham Lincoln had slaves. Like I don't know why there's the thing is
Abraham
that
Lincoln had
only the
slaves.
South had slaves. I'm pretty sure he did. I'm think he had like at least two slaves.
Yeah,
George Washington had like everybody. I mean, George Washington was for Virginia, but I
yeah,
mean, still, you can claim Virginia is the North a little bit, but the whole idea of slavery just gets pinned directly on us all the time. It's like, y'all are evil, y'all had slaves. It's like, okay, the North did too. And, I don't believe in slavery. I think we're all equal under God. I do believe that all of us are enslaved today, to those green bills in your pocket and the phone, the internet. We're slave to that. We're slave to 9 to 5s. We're slave to 401ks. I think it's, yeah, like what you were saying. It's a lot, I wouldn't say it's a lot worse now, but I would say it's different side of slavery almost. Every single one of us are slaves. we're a slave to our retirement funds. We're slaves to our jobs. We're slaves to, every single thing that holds us down. I think we're slaves.
What do you think about people that say, like, there's the classic argument, especially now in the modern, I guess, alt-right, you would say. A lot of people say, well, who sold the slaves? People say it's the Jews were the ones who were responsible for bringing the slaves over to the South to begin with. And some people even go as far to say that when you look at some of the biggest slave owners, that they were Jewish themselves. That part I don't really know as much. I don't know as much about,
Yeah.
like, okay, were there really that many Jays in the South at the time? But it does seem, I think, relatively proven that, well, a lot of the owners of those ships, were perhaps Jewish. So that kind of adds in another element, that adds in another dynamic, I think, to the whole predicament to start with.
Yeah, I actually haven't done as much research on who owned the ships, who owned most of the slaves, but I have seen that. I have there that has been floating around on the internet a lot lately. So I don't know, since I haven't done any research, I don't know if like my input would be best on that.
Yeah.
I think people should do their own research, um, just to find out who really owned those ships, who owned the biggest plantations, you know?
Yeah. What about the KKK? What is
Oh, dude.
what's the deal with those guys? Is that is that something to be ashamed about? Were they doing something different? What was the whole purpose of these guys?
I think I'm not particularly fond of them. I don't really care for those guys. They did some unholy things. The burning of the crosses and stuff, that's not good. Lynching people is not good. But I think they're very overrepresented. I think they weren't like this. They were a menace, yeah, 100%, but I don't think they were like a giant menace that like terrorized every single person that they came across. I think they were problematic 100%, but I think modern media especially will paint anybody in a bad light if they can get their hands on them.
Yeah.
Um uh
Well, you're free to
a
push.
lot of
You're free to push back on me because I think I'm probably a lot more, further to the right than you. But I feel like it was
yeah.
100%, like it was necessary for there to be a KKK, especially in the Reconstruction era, because you have the Union who just kind of is using the 13th Amendment and using their, the fact that the South is now, post Civil War, an occupied nation essentially, and
Mhm.
it was basically the boot of the Union was on the neck of the Southerners, and they weren't really able to enact justice. I think in the way they were sort of handicapped or neutered from being able to carry out justice in many cases, especially against a lot of the free slaves, who unfortunately for themselves go from a position where they're sort of like the purpose and direction of life is very obviously very defined, and there's varying degrees of how much oppression they were under. Some obviously, very oppressive slave owners, some maybe less so, varying degrees. But of course, like when you grow up in that environment, it's like you grow up a prisoner, you don't know anything else. And so being released from that is bound to cause a lot of issues in society. And the reverberations of that is that, and the Union not really allowing the South to sort of enact justice. You get a vigilante group that says, we're going to sort of take it upon ourselves. And I don't know the exact
Yeah.
numbers, but I mean, I would wager that the vast majority of these cases where it's like lynchings, because you'll see like leftists on X, they'll post like this is white America, for example, and they'll post a picture of lynching or something like that, and then you read like, okay, who was this guy, what he did? It's like, okay, it's like this guy murdered, raped, 13-year-old girl or something like that.
Yeah.
Very frequently,
Yeah.
if not the majority of
Yeah.
the case. So was there probably some of them that went outside the line? definitely, but did they were they probably enacting justice more often than they weren't? I would say, I mean, that would be my wager, honestly.
Yeah.
Of course, it's impossible to determine that for certain, but
Yeah, we can't go back in time and actually look. We have certain media outlets that a lot of the history is controlled, definitely. So I guess we'll know from like firsthand accounts because there's still people today that were in
yeah,
it, knew somebody that was in it. So we can really only learn the true story from those people. Yeah, they did some horrible stuff to
yeah.
people that did deserve it, but I'm sure they also did some good stuff to people that did deserve it. And it wasn't just blacks either. Like there's I've heard stories of them doing it to white men that beat their wives or killed their wives or
Yeah,
raped other women. It wasn't
yeah.
just to one certain group. It was spread out amongst the
Or
group. And like I was saying, they'll overrepresent something if they can get their hands on it.
yeah, or like Leo Frank, for example. He was not. Do you know who Leo Frank was?
I think so.
So
Explain. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so the founder of the ADL, which is the Anti
Mm.
Defamation League. I don't know
Yeah.
if are you familiar with who they are? So they're very
Yeah.
they sort of like police the internet against any forms of like anti-Semitism or anything. They started originally because there was this Jewish man who was accused, Leo Frank, who was accused of raping a girl and then killing her.
Yeah. And then I think I know he blamed it on the black
He
guy and
blamed
then
it
the
on a
KKK.
yeah. He blamed it on a
Yeah.
black guy, and the cake. They were just like yeah, we're not buying it. So like,
Yeah.
what does that go? What does that say if like the literal KKK is siding with the black guy? What does that say about the potential evidence that
Yeah.
was there? And that's like how the ADL literally started, was to defend this guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, outside of like, for example, like moving on from the KKK, I get the feeling that you're a Christian, correct?
Mhm. Yeah. 100%.
What would you say? Because like the Soul Bra crowd, to my knowledge, and they're kind of there's this sort of esoteric right almost where you have Soul Bra, then you have Bronze Age pervert. You have a few of these kind of like people in the same orbit, and they're inspired by works usually of people like Nietzsche, Julius Evola, and I think one thing all of what they all have in common is generally, I think, especially from, I mean, Solbron, like all those sources, generally a tendency towards animosity almost towards Christianity in a lot of ways. I feel like I think Evola, for example, pushed some form of like a rebirth of paganism, I think, or something. I'm not as familiar with
Yeah.
Evola, but that does seem to be like a trend amongst a lot of the sort of like the health max, the virility max, esoteric health space. One of their
Yeah.
cornerstone
Nietzsche,
beliefs,
Nietzsche vitalists and
yeah,
all that.
Nietzschean vitalists. How do you sort of yeah, what do you think about that? Like, do you rectify that in any ways? Do you think they're incorrect, that they're completely wrong? How does that change your philosophy and worldview?
I I just think they don't understand Christianity a lot. And I've had this conversation last week with somebody that they were like, "Why don't you ever talk about Christianity?" And it's like, well, I can talk about Evola and Nietzsche, Socrates, Plato, and I can get them wrong. I can, mispronounce something. I can say something that they didn't say. I can like totally get them wrong. And only people on the internet will be upset with me. But if I talk about Christianity and get that wrong, then I have Jesus that's going to be like, you said that wrong. You misled somebody. Um, I think a lot of those guys they don't really understand. They think Christianity is like a weak pacifist religion. They don't know too much about like they always do the turn the other cheek um verse, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that just they're always like, yeah, that just shows that y'all are weak. That just shows that y'all will let people walk all over you. And it's like, no, whenever you go back and look at the at like what that really means, it's more of an insult. It's like if somebody insults you, don't react in a like don't react stupidly, don't react ignorantly. I don't really know like I like all those people. Um I like Nietzsche. Um I like Evola. I like all those guys. Yeah. A lot like Bap. I think said something about. I can't forget. I'm forgetting what he said at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, their fundamental critique, to my knowledge, it ultimately is. Yeah, I think it's rooted. BAP is really just like someone who's taking the works of Nietzsche and just sort of rewording it in a way that's like very appealing to a very modern audience. He has, of course, probably some of his own ideas that are a little bit different. Of course, he himself is, not really of entirely European stock, so that affects, I think,
Yeah.
his philosophy and worldview a little bit. Him being having a Romanian Jewish background, of course, he's not fully going to be viewing things from the perspective of someone that's, thinking in terms of just being a fully European. But
Yeah.
I think with these vitalist guys is they're wanting to return to a previous age where a sort of a different spirit of the world sort of ruled the world, where you have
Yeah.
Christianity that came along, and the nature of Christianity, in their view, and I haven't fully made up my mind about it, but it's like that it's sort of this uplifting of the downtrodden and the poor, the suffering, and it's sort of inverting. It's sort of the natural hierarchy where the strong eats the weak, and that is ultimately the thing that is put at any hierarchy. What Christianity does is it comes in, it takes the weakest and the downtrodden, it puts them. They're actually the ones that are the nearest and the closest to God. And you can correct. I'm not really a
Mhm.
theologian, but you can correct me on any of this. And yeah,
I'm not either.
yeah,
I'm it's like it's like they want to return to tradition. A lot of these guys, it's like my ancestors were pagan, my ancestors were this. It's like they want to return to tradition. But it's like, okay, 1500 years ago, your ancestors were Christians. Like, I don't understand that sentiment really.
yeah. Well, you could just say it's like they're returning more to tradition because they're going back even further.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But do you feel like Christianity ultimately came in and sort of solved something or made it change things for the better ultimately?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Literacy rates, overall, like the health of people, like schooling, knowledge, and it's the thing about having that like warrior caste. Christian nations in Europe still had that. They still had knights. There was a story of a pope that went to battle and stormed the battlements of a castle. It's like Christians, yeah, we want to uplift everybody, yeah, but there's also like there's still warrior Christians out there.
Yeah. But then ultimately, again, like I'll kind of play devil's advocate a little bit and kind of like push against. But ultimately, I guess they would say is like, well, that spirit of like that crusader spirit was something that was maybe left over from an earlier age, or of course, like when you take Christianity and you implement it, it is not going to be implemented overnight. These
Yeah.
concepts of loving your brother and genuinely like having a disdain or abhorring things like war. I think you mentioned before this that you're reading Ernst Junger's
Mhm.
book on I don't know if it's like war as an inner experience or if it's the other one, Storm of Steel.
Yeah.
And for example, I mean, like that's a good like book as an example. Is in that book, he's purely talking about the experience of war and what it is like as a man. And in a lot of ways, I think Christianity obviously sort of leads people. It wants to lead us away from things like violence. It wants to lead us away from anything that would involve sort of this, yeah, like this ruthless hierarchy of domination and destruction and violence. And in many ways, we've sort of absorbed that morality because war still exists and it still occurs throughout the world, all over the place. But it's kind of almost, I mean, for the large part, it's been a bit eradicated from our lives. Like we don't really
Yeah.
have this. It's not like a, it's not really an opportunity that or something that is going to present ourselves most likely in our lives. Even if it did, even if we go to war with Iran or something like that, it's well at the end of the day, that would just amount to what, like sitting in a, like flying a drone. That's not
Yeah.
the same thing as being a
Yeah.
crusader. So it's like
Yeah.
we are sort of the modernity is changing us to a large extent. And these guys, I think they just want to throw out everything and say, you know what, we're just going to go as far back as we possibly can, and then you ultimately end up with paganism. But it does seem to be a very fundamental part of their worldview.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's funny you say that. There was a picture of this war horse that was getting blown up by this drone, and it's like how noble a war horse to be blown up by a fucking dude sitting in a storage container with a headset goggles on that's probably jerking off while he's flying a drone. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude. I can imagine going to combat today and just like fighting for my life in the trenches, and then some dude's just in a storage container. It just
yeah,
blows me up.
yeah,
I would be so pissed.
yeah, yeah. Are you overall hopeful about the, I guess, the situation right now, like America in general? Right now, I'm not, stateside, but how do you feel about like the overall atmosphere or direction that kind of this space that you're sort of making content now and you're getting into? You're seeing these guys following you, and again, like that, it's all sort of like coalescing around very similar ideas, even if they might
Yeah,
seem very like diverse and different sort of forms of content or whatever. We're all sort of, I think, even the Baptists and the like the Christian bodybuilder types and all of them are all sort of like circling around this general, I think, desire for a rebirth, like a rebirth of the Western sort of like spirit in some sense.
yeah.
Where do you sort of, I guess, do you have any like thoughts or opinions on like, yeah, how that would come about or like how it should come about, or what exactly like ought to be done? I guess which route like a young white guy like yourself ought to go down, given all this information that we see in the world today with this this fear.
Yeah, I think people need to stop listening to their parents and grandparents about certain groups of people and then make up their own minds. And I think this there's like a resurgence of right-wing intellectualism, like more and more, especially on the internet. You see people making fun of like the neoconservatives, just being like, dude, that's kind of an old thing that kind of died out in like 2020. You know,
Yeah,
I definitely see this new sort of right wing intellectualism popping up every single day. I see it. I think people need to read more books, especially of voices of the past. I think there's knowledge of people from the past that we need to listen to rather than the Fox News anchor or your granddad that is completely enthralled with this certain country in the Middle East. I think people need to stay away from that and come up with their own ideas of what they think of
yeah,
the world, of politics and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Because do you ever watch Uber Boyo? Do you know who that is? He
I
makes
don't think so.
he's a good example of, I think, one of the best modern like right wing Zoomer intellectuals. He it's again kind of he reiterates Nietzschean philosophy, goes back like to Carl Jung, and yeah, really integrates this. It was a really good channel. He made, I think, a very apt observation in one of the podcast interviews that I was listening to him on, where the thing about the left is they do actually have a compelling. When I say compelling, I just mean they have like a thought out worldview. Like they know their ultimate end goal, even though like a lot of
Yeah.
us would say like, okay, this is objectively evil, but they're thinking
Yeah.
about the future and the direction that things ought to be. Things ought to be diverse. Things ought to. We need to eliminate, the institutional white supremacy, for example. And there's a very clear path to doing that. You just don't hire, the white people or the white guys.
Yeah.
And we're going to change the laws to, enable sort of a general redistribution of wealth. And it's obviously there's a million holes in all of those things, but at least it's things that they're activated and they're motivated to do. Whereas a lot
Yeah.
of conservatism is just kind of, a lot of times it could be a bit of like just like a circle jerk of what the past was like. It's like
Yeah.
how cool the past was, but it's okay. Well, how does this actually? How do you actually take anything from the past and how does it apply to the future? What exactly would the worldview be? I think it seems like a lot of conservative thought still is a bit lacking behind in that way, because it's almost always on the defensive. It's like, well, just close the border, just keep it closed. That's all we
Yeah.
want. Like it's like you're just like asking for like a please, just make something stop. It's where they're always on defense, whereas the left is always on offense. So it's almost more motivating for
Yeah.
them as a worldview, and something we're really, I think, lacking in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of infighting on the right. I was talking to my buddy about how, there's the Groypers, and then there's this other group, and then there's another group, and then those groups don't like anything about this other group, and then that other group doesn't like anything about this other group. There's a lot of infighting on the right. Like everybody has this certain view of how things should be done,
Yeah,
but not a lot of organization. I'll give it to the left. They have organization. Like
yeah,
they can organize.
yeah,
We really can't. We can't organize that much.
yeah,
There's just too much infighting. I think the infighting needs to stop. But as long as people vehemently hate, or not vehemently, but like disagree with this other right wing group, there will never be like an organization. They just can't like get past a disagreement and then focus on the goods.
yeah,
They only focus on like the disagreement, the one thing that he said a couple years ago.
yeah, yeah. Like in one sense, like some of these are pretty fundamental disagreements. So if you have, for example, a guy who's very polarizing, like Nick Fuentes, he has a
Hmm.
very particular worldview, and that's part of why a lot of people gravitate towards him, because it's compelling and he's
Yeah.
actually thinking about the future, and there's actually things that can be implemented in the American space. He's obviously, I think, the most like active and has the strongest supporters. But yeah, it's kind of the very nature of that position, of taking the position of the Catholic monarchist. I don't know if he still considers himself a monarchist, but like the Catholic right, nationalist American. That's such a polarizing position, because that forces you to accept not only far right wing doctrine, but you also ultimately have to become Catholic. And of course, I don't think that
Yeah.
they. It seems like they somewhat have like a tentative alliance, I guess, with people that are just like broadly Christian. I don't think that they're, antagonistic towards people that are Protestant. But you could see things going in that direction maybe eventually. If eventually they're at a point where they actually have like a somewhat of like a majority power, it's sort of like, okay, well, if you aren't, even if you're far right, but you're not taking the final step of, for example, accepting Catholicism, or if you're Catholic and you're not, accepting all these other, social conservatisms as well. So it's like a very particular worldview that's very polarizing, and so naturally, it's like there's gonna people are sort of they're gonna be just fighting over which boat we need to get on because it's yeah, I agree. It would ultimately be better if we all just got along and just said, hey, what it doesn't
Yeah,
matter what our worldview is as long as we just send them all back, you know. but
yeah,
I'm not super hopeful that that'll happen, but we'll see.
yeah. I hope at some point we'll organize and have like an actual instead of like a Trump movement. I hope we'll have like an actual movement of something else. I mean, we need something else. We need somebody other than Trump. I think as Trump kind of disgraced. I was a Trump fanboy for since till like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe not even then. Maybe last year I stopped being a Trump fanboy, and then I was like, just don't. I can't get with the guy. He doesn't have our interests aligned. He has like his money, like other things align. He does some good stuff. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I think overall he's definitely not delivered on a lot of the things that he said he would.
Yeah. I mean, he's everyone agrees he's funny. He's entertaining.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a funny guy.
yeah. Yeah. But outside of that, yeah, objectively, it's kind of like yeah, it was exciting in the elections. It's like, oh my God, Kamala Harris. Okay, gee, it's almost easy to forget that that was sort of the scenario or what they were up against. But yeah, since then there hasn't really been a lot of delivery. But I think that people I think have to recognize that he's sort of like a battering ram. Like he is the one of the first outside of the political institution individuals,
Yeah,
and he sort of broke in. Now,
yeah,
ultimately, he ended up becoming absorbed by that political machine. I think we would all say by now. I think he's not really,
yeah,
he's not really tangibly all that different from a lot of the same Washington D.C. Creatures now.
yeah,
But at least he presents he represents the possibility now in American political life that someone from the outside can come in, because before the
yeah,
dialogue was, yeah, I mean you're a bit younger of course, but it's like when you have Bush, Clinton, Romney, like you have these, like it was a whole different scene before then. It wasn't.
yeah,
It was. You go back and you actually listen to some of those speeches. It's kind of surreal to see, like, because they would speak in this uber political language where they weren't saying anything real whatsoever. But now the political discourse has become more incendiary. But
mhm,
ultimately, it's sort of now we have like a where the door is kind of open for something new to maybe come in. I have no idea who that would be, to be honest. Who could be that guy? But after Trump, but
Who could be that guy? Who do you want to be that guy? If you have anybody in mind.
I mean, if you could pick anyone, I yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that would be like a perfect fit. Fuentes would be a pretty good fit, I suppose, but he's quite a few cycles I think away from that. Not
Yeah,
that I agree with everything, but he's pretty like probably the closest in the public eye. Some people are rumoring like Tucker Carlson might run, which again isn't perfect, but it's okay. You know, there's not really like everyone sort of comes with their own baggage. There hasn't really been anyone that's came along that just comes across as perfect. What's cool about Trump is he's sort of like he stood the test of time. Like they've done everything they could to try to tear him down, and nothing really stuck ultimately. But yeah, I mean, it'd be a difficult choice. I mean, we need we need a benevolent dictator. We need a Caesar to emerge
yeah.
and cross the
We
Rubicon.
need a tyrant. Yeah, we need somebody. We need a Caesar. We need a dictator for 6 years to get us right back on track. I think a Fuentes Alex Jones presidency would be pretty awesome.
I mean, Alex Jones would be pretty hilarious. But yeah, I also just feel like that the macro situation is a bit cooked, kind of. I mean, I think if something changes at the high level, that'd be amazing. But it's almost one of those things that it's so the American machine is such a like you almost can't even put into words how gigantic like the American empire machine is, and so the thought of anything coming in and like of course can make some changes, but it might be the case that it's just heading in the trajectory that it is, and we can do what we can to revive it. But ultimately, maybe the empire does just sort of like go into this space of slowly decay. And so then, how does that change these people on the right? Like, how does that change your strategy if that's ultimately the cycle that we're going into? Ultimately, it's like, okay, well now ideal, yeah, things change at the macro level, but it's almost like we can't even prepare for that because that's just like very hopeful thinking. The best thing is, I think, just to like collectivize and with other dudes who think the same way ultimately at a local level and that are maybe
Yeah.
congregating in certain locations around the world, in the United States and Europe, and even other places. And that I think is the important thing because we have all these people that are on the internet right now and they're engaging in this content, but it's like it's sort of just being channeled into a lot of like spurg energy, like spurg rage, where you're
Yeah.
just like raging at the reels as you scroll them, and dude's like living in his parents' basement, whatever. So you have like
Yeah.
a lot of this energy that is not being like distilled in any way outside of just consumption. The real thing is like, okay, sifting through all of this stuff, like sifting through all the noise, and how do we like get connected to the people that are on the same wavelength, and just getting those minds together, because that's just the first step. Ultimately, is like we need like the people that think this way and that want to motivate change. We have to get together first, and not in like a Fed posty way or an activist way even, but just
Yeah.
being in proximity to each other and sharing ideas and connecting with one another. That's how that energy, I think, begins to sort of sift itself out and organize into something that actually has potential.
Yeah. Yeah. Tribe up. Tribe and train. 100%. Um. Yeah. I saw a dude that went to this town hall meeting in like California or something. He was like, if if 200 men came to these meetings every single time y'all had one, there would be actual change. And then spread that across the nation, like
Yeah,
200 men at every single government assembly. There would be like 200 men with the same ideals and same thought process. There would
yeah,
be change overnight.
yeah.
Um, I think, like I was saying earlier, the infighting is still real. That needs to come to an end 100%. I think we all need
Yeah.
to just organize. I think we need to organize, and it doesn't have to be like you were saying, Fed LARPing or
Yeah, yeah,
anything like
yeah.
that. I
Fed
think,
posting. Yeah,
yeah, Fed posting. There's a lot of Feds out there. You gotta be careful. I think
yeah,
like
yeah,
Patriot Front gets memed out with the Fed posts and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think men, you see these like 2A FAFO boomers that are like fuck around, find out, Second Amendment, and they're sitting on all this stuff, and it's like you're not doing a thing you said that you would want to do.
Oh yeah, yeah,
They're fucking around and they're not finding out.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
I was talking to Rogues Philo. We did a podcast together, and he's guys living in Kyrgyzstan. He's also like one of these like Evolian philosopher type guys, and yeah, he says that he's like really a lot of this this whole what you said FAFO. It's like, well, when they like let him try something, let him try. It's like, bro, like COVID literally was the thing. Like they did
Yeah,
everything that you said, like aside from literally going in and taking your guns, they did everything. They shut you down.
yeah,
They tried to force you to like inject shit in your body, and then they let the extreme leftists and the blacks and all these people go out and just like burn the whole country down for
Yeah,
like a whole like weeks at a time. Like Portland was rioting
yeah,
nonstop for like over a month, and so it's just like yeah, a lot of the problem is if you don't like yeah, if you don't, it's just not really real. It's just sort of becomes, it just has sort of become a LARP, and it almost doesn't even, yeah,
yeah.
like yeah, it's not even really so much yeah, so much an option anymore. You know, like LARPing and stuff like that can't be done, and especially with what you saw recently with like the Henry Novak thing. I think Novak is, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but in the UK,
Yeah.
like that just popped off. It's like it's horrible. But again, it's like the the posting about it is an important aspect because we need, obviously, awareness needs to be raised for it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like the question is like where will that energy go somewhere besides just posting about it? Like, will it actually
Yeah.
cause anything different? Because like people are fed up. Obviously, like that was an insane situation. I'm sure you saw it.
Oh, yeah. I spent like a day just sulking over that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the FAFO 2A guy, like, don't mess with Texas, and then Texas is just being overrun. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're just being overrun, and they're not doing anything about it. The FAFO guys are just, yeah, we're not gonna do anything about it, and then like the protesting is good over Henry Novak. The posting about it,
Yeah.
like being there, posting on X about it, is raising awareness. But where would that awareness go? They're not gonna. I see them not doing anything about it. They're not going to. They're not going to enact the change that should be enacted. You know, the remigration summit. I think you might have had a part in. Um,
I know
I
a lot
think
of people
that's
that were
good.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. Getting petitions signed is good, but if you just get petitions signed and then do nothing after, there's no change. You're just wasting your time. Um, it brings awareness, but there's no action. There's not going to be action. What I
Yeah.
see. I hope there will be 100%. I'm hopeful for action, but being a realist, there's not gonna at this point, protesting and petitions and posting online,
Yeah.
that's not going to do anything
Yeah.
to bring change.
Yeah.
Something else um, will have to happen for there
Yeah.
to be actual change.
Yeah. Like, you know, it is of course like an important element, like the proper, like putting the presenting the information in a way where like rage posting about this stuff gets, obviously doesn't get anywhere in a lot of ways. It can even backfire. Some people, you know, when like the remigration people, they have this idea and they're presenting it in a very clean way, a way that's sort of separated itself from the gutter nationalism in many
Yeah,
ways, or just like the
yeah,
the caricature, for example, like the KKK. You know, the caricature that the KKK has become. It's like that's what no one wants to associate with that image, this vile, you know,
yeah,
hateful image. And they're doing a pretty good job at, again, like you know, putting out the stats, putting out the things in a way, in a way that's compelling, and it's not necessarily that triggering to the powers that be, and it comes across as overall just like very rational. And I think that's maybe something that's lacking a little bit as well, because it's very easy to get caught up in the we're gonna, you know, these invaders, we're gonna send these invaders
yeah,
back, and we're gonna what any means necessary. There's a way, there's a lot of room and a big opportunity to probably just, you know, be convincing and sway a lot of people and compel them just by sheer just like numbers and boring logic. It's like, yeah, well, when you have X amount of people come in from this culture, it's gonna, you know, affect your 401ks by this percentage, you know, or it's gonna
yeah,
increase the violent crime by this amount. And you can present these ideas in a way that's not as charged with this rhetoric that has been made so like poisonous and dangerous to be around for since forever, or since the
everyday
last couple
people.
decades. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can make it
Yeah,
accessible to everyday
it's
people.
yeah. if you do it like how you're talking, anybody that was sort of central, even left wing leaning, can see that and be like, okay, they're actually doing this in a way where it's not ignorant or it's not stupid looking, or it's they're doing it in a way that it's professional and it looks organized and it looks
Yeah,
appealing. And so hopefully I'm hopeful
yeah,
that people will see it and be like, yeah, something does need to change. They're putting out these numbers, people are signing up. Um, I think I think it's the way they're doing it, and they're doing it really well. Is definitely going to grab a lot of attention from people that would ultimately be like, I want to stay away from those people. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my career. I don't want people to look at me and be like, oh, he's some sort of crazy type of person. They're doing it in a very, very good, thought out way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then even on just like the micro level, I think there's like small things people can do. Like I think personally, it's good to only have friends with people that are of the same like thought process as you and are on the same wavelength with this sort of stuff, because I think it's very easy like to be thinking in terms of like, oh, this is my libtard buddy, you know. But I go and I do bread and circus with him. I do,
Yeah,
we go out on the weekends, go to the raid.
yeah,
It problem is it brings you down to that level, and so it's like
yeah,
the biggest thing is sort of like maintaining that energy within yourself and surrounding yourself by other people that like are aligned with you, not making compromises. I think obviously we all have to make compromises. We all have like relationships and family or whatever that obviously don't always think the same way. But if you can just be around people that allow you to sort of like not only like understand this like the worldview, but also sort of become like generative and like think about it in ways where you can come away with like really practical ideas. It's something I think that brotherhood I think is lacking, in a lot of ways.
yeah, yeah. They're doing it in a way where people don't have to risk their jobs. I'm still small. I can't do this what we're doing right now full time. I still have to have a job. I still have to be a part of this sort of society that the left has built up. Um, I agree with you on everything that you're thinking of. I
Yeah.
just can't, come out and say it right now. In the future, I hope that will change.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the near future, I can start doing this full time, and then I won't have to worry about uh, backlash.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Well, man, we've been going for quite a bit, but it was a good conversation. I appreciate it. Thanks for
Yeah.
thanks for joining me. Yeah, man. Any final closing any closing words, thoughts?
What have you been working on?
Just focusing on content and getting connected with other people that are, doing very interesting and fascinating things in the space. I travel a lot, and so I think travel is a way where you can kind of encounter, spontaneity and sort of like awaken a bit of like an adventurous spirit, and doing that with
The
other people.
Faustian spirit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but 100%. But awesome, man. Well, thank you for joining me, and yeah, maybe we'll talk soon. Peace.
Yes. Peace.